He brought his lover to our anniversary dinner and told me she was the upgrade. What he didn't know was that she would never see him again. After that night, meet the upgrade, James said, with a smirk, his hand possessively resting on the small of her back. Those 3 words hung in the air of Lupa Jardin, shattering the carefully set anniversary dinner I'd spent months planning 10 years of marriage, reduced to a cruel introduction on what should have been our special night. I watched them settle into their seats across from me, Sarah's perfect blonde hair catching the candlelight as she slid into what should have been my husband's chair. James sat beside her, already reaching for the 1982 Bordeaux. It ordered our traditional anniversary wine. His casual confidence was breathtaking. He truly believed he was in control of the situation. If only he knew what James didn't realize. As he poured 3 glasses of wine with practiced elegance, was that Sarah's emerald cocktail dress would be her last outfit. Of the evening, the restaurant's warm lighting caught the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist. My grandmother's bracelet, which had mysteriously disappeared from my jewelry box. 3 months ago, how fitting that she'd chosen to wear it tonight. I thought we should clear the air. James continued, his voice carrying that authoritative tone. He'd perfected in corporate boardrooms. No need to drag this out with Lake. The proceedings, the papers will be delivered tomorrow. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat, perhaps sensing something in my too calm demeanor. She was young, barely 25, but old enough to know better. Old enough to understand that some lines shouldn't be crossed. Old enough to face the consequences of her choices. Of course, I replied, lifting my wine glass with a steady hand to new. Begin. The irony of my toast was lost on them both. James smiled clearly, pleased with how maturely I was handling the situation. He'd always underestimated me, assumed that my quiet strength was weakness, my patience was passivities. The next few hours would change everything. Each second that ticked by brought us closer to the moment when their perfect little world would implode. The evidence was already in place. The pieces had been moving for months while they'd been enjoying their secret rendezvous and plotting their grand reveal. I'd been orchestrating something far more intricate. I excused myself to Thog, the powder room, maintaining my composure as I felt their eyes on my back at the burgundy dress I wore. James's favorite suddenly felt like armor in the elegant bathroom mirror. I checked my reflection, not a hair out of place, not a smudge in my carefully applied makeup. The woman staring back at me looked polished, controlled, and dangerous. Tonight wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of something else entirely. Sarah would indeed never see James again after this evening, but not for the reasons anyone might suspect. As I returned to the table, I allowed myself a small smile. Sometimes the perfect revenge requires the perfect audience. The night was still young, and I had plans for both of them. I retook my seat, watching as they exchanged confident glances over their wine glasses. My phone buzzed quietly in my purse. Right on schedule, in precisely 30 minutes, everything they built their little fantasy upon would start to crumble. James would learn the true meaning of an upgrade in Sarah, while Sarah would learn that some roles aren't worth playing. Tell me, Sarah, I said, leaning forward slightly. How long have you been wearing my grandmother's bracelet? The color drained from both their faces, and I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. This was just the first domino. By midnight, their world would be unrecognizable. The matriarch approached our table with practiced grace, carrying a sealed envelope. Right on time, madame, he said, presenting it to me with a slight bow as requested. James's brow furrowed in confusion. He hadn't noticed that I'd been quietly running the show all along. How amusing that he still thought this evening was his idea. I picked up my wine glass one final time, savoring the moment. Shall we begin? I opened the envelope with deliberate slowness. Aware of James's increasingly anxious stare, the memories of our shared past flashed through my mind as I pulled out the contents. Photographs, documents, and a USB drive that made Sarah's perfectly glossed lips part in. Surprise, what is this? James demanded, his corporate confidence wavering for the first time that evening. History, I replied simply. Laying out the first photograph, it was from our wedding day 10 years ago. We looked radiant, young, and hopelessly in love. Do you remember what you promised that day? James, his jaw tightened. Of course he remembered. James never forgot anything. That was part of what made him such a successful SE. That same meticulous memory had once made him a thoughtful husband, noting every anniversary, every preference, every small detail that made our marriage special. That's ancient history, he said dismissively, but his eyes lingered on the photo I laid out. Another photograph, this one from 2 years ago. A business dinner where I first noticed something was off. James's hand resting a fraction too long on his assistant's shoulder. Not Sarah, her predecessor. That's when the pattern had started. 6 months after this. I continued placing another photo on the table. You began staying late at the office every Tuesday and Thursday. You said it was for the Singapore merger. I turned to Sarah, whose confident smile had begun to fade. Interesting timing, wasn't it? That's when you were hired as the new junior executive. James' face darkened. If you're trying to create a scene. Oh no, I interrupted softly. I'm not creating anything, I'm revealing. There's a difference. I pulled out another document, bank statements like how you revealed our marriage was over tonight. I'm revealing how you've been transferring company funds through shell corporations for the past 18 months. The wine glass in his hand froze. Halfway to his lips, Sarah's eyes widened, darting between chums and the documents. You always said I didn't understand your work. I continued, each word carefully measured, but you forgot something crucial, darling. Before I became your wife, I was one of the top forensic accountants in the country. Those late nights you spent with Sarah, I spent mine following your paper trail. The memories of those sleepless nights washed over me. Ding discovery had been another crack in the foundation of our marriage. But instead of breaking me, they had forged something stronger. Every betrayal had become a weapon in my arsenal. Those gifts you've been lavishing on Sarah, the bracelet you stole from my grandmother's collection to give her the penthouse apartment, the offshore account, and her name. They're all traceable to embezzled company funds. Sarah Cafe's had lost all color now, James. You said those funds were legitimate. You said, quiet, he snapped. But the damage was done. The first crack in their united front had appeared. I withdrew another photo from the envelope. This one was from 6 months ago. Our last happy moment together or so. I'd thought we were at the company's charity gala, smiling for the cameras. You remember this night, don't you? It was the same night you approved the transfer of $50 million to our account in the Cayman. James's hand was shaking now, though he tried to hide it by setting down his wine glass. Whatever you think you found. Oh, I found everything, I said, finally allowing a hint of steel to enter my voice. Every transaction, every fake account, every falsified document. Did you really think I spent the last year just waiting at home, playing the dutiful wife? The memories of our early years together surfaced unbidden. Lazy Sunday mornings, surprise vacations. Small, thoughtful gestures that had made our love seem unshakable. But beneath those golden memories lay the truth. He uncovered a man so consumed by greed and power that he'd sacrificed everything we'd built together. Your father always warned you about me, I mused. Watching as various emotions played across James's face, he said someone with my background in financial crimes investigation would never make a suitable corporate wife. He was right, wasn't he? Just not in the way he imagined. Sarah started to stand, but I raised a hand to stop her. I wouldn't leave just yet. The FBI agents in the restaurant lobby might have some questions for you about those offshore accounts in your name. The blood drained from James's face as realization dawned. All those months he thought he'd been cleverly hiding his affairs, both romantic and financial. He'd actually been weaving the rope for his own undoing, you see? I continued, sliding the USB drive across the table. This contains everything the federal investigators need to unravel your entire scheme, and thanks to your dramatic choice of venue. Tonight we have plenty of witnesses to establish that you voluntarily received this evidence, the past year of pain, betrayal, and careful planning. Crystallized in this moment, every late night spent tracking transactions, every tear shed over discovered lies. Every moment of humiliation had led to this perfect convergence of justice and revenge. The silence at our table was deafening. I watched as James's perfectly crafted facade crumbled, revealing the man I'd truly married, not the charming who'd swept me off my feet at that corporate law conference 12 years ago, but the calculating manipulator who'd seen me as nothing more than a convenient stepping stone. You don't know what you're talking about, he attempted, but his voice lacked its usual authority. My position as Sterling Corp was handed to you by your father. I finished, the same father who built the company from nothing, who warned you about marrying someone with my particular skill set. I turned to Sarah, whose designer dress suddenly seemed to hang heavy on her shoulders. Did he tell you about his background, Sarah, about how he was the third choice for Co, only securing the position after two other candidates mysteriously withdrew? Sarah's perfectly manicured fingers clutched her purse. She'd come from the market department, a rapid rise through the ranks that had raised eyebrows. But not as many as it should have. Her resume listed degrees from prestigious universities, references from influential executives, and a track record of successful campaigns, all carefully fabricated, as my investigation had revealed. Your real name isn't even Sarah, is it? I said softly, watching her composure crack. Elena Petrova graduated from a small community college in Minnesota, changed her ident 3 times in the past 5 years. You've played this role before, haven't you? The ambitious young executive helping married C's embezzle funds before disappearing with your cut. James's head snapped toward her genuine shock, registering on his face for all his cunning. He'd been played just as thoroughly as he tried to play me. The irony would have been amusing if it weren't so tragic. I was a federal prosecutor before I switched to corporate law. I continued addressing them both, specialized in white-collar crime. That's how James and I met. I was investigating his father's company for potential securities fraud. I smiled at the memory. James was so charming, so seemingly transparent. He helped me prove the allegations were false. I thought he was different from the corrupt executives I usually dealt with. The restaurant's ambient noise seemed to fade as I leaned forward. But you weren't different, were you, James? You were just better at hiding it. When we married, you made sure I took a position at a private firm away from any oversight of Sterling Corp's activities. You encouraged me to focus on merger acquisitions rather than forensic accounting. Every career move you suggested led me further from discovering what you really were. Sarah or Elena shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Her eyes darted toward the restaurant's entrance, where 2 men in dark suits had just appeared. Your father was right. About one thing, I said. Watching James's face, my background made me uniquely qualified to understand corporate fraud, but he was wrong about me being unsuitable. I was exactly what the situation needed. I reached into my purse and withdrew one final document. This is a copy of my resignation letter from Morrison and Sterling. Submitted this morning, effective immediately, I'll be returning to the FBI's white-collar crime division. I stood smoothing my dress. They were particularly interested in my intimate knowledge of Sterling Corp's operations. The look of betrayal on James's face was almost comic. He'd orchestrated this dinner to humiliate me, to flaunt his young mistress, and declare me obsolete instead. He'd walked straight into a trap. Years in the making, Agent Thompson will want to speak with you both, I said, nodding toward the approaching FBI agents. I suggest you cooperate. Your father's influence won't help you this time. James, the board, received copies of all the evidence an hour ago. As I turned to leave, I caught my reflection in the restaurant window. The woman staring back bore little resemblance to the trusting bride of 10 years ago, or even to the successful corporate lawyer I'd become. This woman was something else entirely. A fusion of all my past roles, hardened by betrayal and sharpened by purpose. As I walked away from the table, I could hear the FBI agents beginning their rehearsed lines. Mr. Sterling, Miss Petrova, we need you to come with us, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Everything that would unfold now had been meticulously planned over the past 6 months. The matraque handed me my coat with a knowing smile. He'd been well compensated for his role tonight, ensuring our table was perfectly positioned within view of the restaurant security cameras. Every word, every gesture, every document I presented had been carefully recorded. Additional evidence for the prosecution in my car. I pulled out my secure phone and sent a single text. Checkmate within minutes. Digital. Copies of all Sterling Corp's fraudulent transactions would be released to every major financial news outlet. The morning headlines were already written, but this wasn't a plan born of sudden inspiration. No, it had taken shape during those long, sleepless nights after I'd first discovered James's deception. I remember the exact moment finding a receipt for a diamond bracelet I'd never received dated our last anniversary. That single slip had unraveled everything I'd given myself, 1 week to grieve. 7 days of tears and rage hidden behind closed doors. On the 8th day, I'd begun to plan. The first step had been reaching out to Marcus, my old colleague from the FBI. I need surveillance, I told him over coffee in a quiet cafe 3 towns over, everything you can get on James Sterling and Sterling Core. Financial movements. Marcus had been hesitant initially. This isn't just about infidelity, is it? He asked, studying my face. It never is with men like James, I replied. Give me 2 months, I'll prove. There's something bigger. Those 2 months had been a masterclass in deception. While James thought I was throwing myself into work to cope with our crumbling marriage, I was actually building a case. Every late night at the office had been spent tracing money, trails documenting suspicious patterns, and connecting dots that painted a damning picture. I'd hired private investigators to track both James and Sarah planted listening devices in their favorite meeting spots, gained access to their private communications through entirely legal channels. Amazing what a worried wife can accomplish with a good lawyer and evidence of suspected financial fraud. The real breakthrough had come when I discovered Sarah's true identity. Elena Petrova wasn't just a con artist. She was a known associate of several financial crime rings. That discovery had led to a secret meeting in a parking garage worthy of a spy novel. I can offer you immunity, I told her. 3 months ago. Full witness protection, new identity. Clean slate, all you have to do is help me prove what James is doing. Elena had been smarter than James gave her credit for. She'd seen the writing on the wall and agreed to play her part, continuing her role as the infatuated mistress while documenting every illegal transaction James asked her to handle. Tonight's dinner hadn't been James's idea, at all. I'd orchestrated everything using Elena to suggest the restaurant, the timing, even the cruel way he'd chosen to end our marriage. James's ego had made him believe it was all his own plan. Each step had been calculated, each reaction anticipated. I'd known James would choose to humiliate me publicly. His narcissism wouldn't allow for anything less dramatic. I'd known Elena would wear my grandmother's bracelet. I'd planted it in James's desk myself, knowing he'd give it to her as a trophy. As I drove home, now I thought about the evidence folders being delivered to board members, homes, the international WI transfers being flagged and frozen, the arrest, warrants being executed at multiple locations in a few hours, the empire James had stolen from his father would crumble. My phone buzzed with an incoming text from Marcus. All targets in custody. Evidence secured, everything was proceeding exactly as planned. I pulled into my driveway, the same one James and I had shared for a decade, and smiled at the irony while he'd been planning tonight's grand gesture of humiliation. I'd been setting up the final pieces of my elaborate trap right under his nose in our own home. Another text from Marcus lit up my phone package. 2 delivered board members responding. Everything was unfolding with clockwork precision. The evidence I'd gathered hadn't just been sent to the FBI. I'd made sure every board member of Sterling Corp received personalized packages containing proof of how James's actions had specifically damaged their interests. Old Mr. Richardson would be particularly interested in how James had manipulated his family's shares. Mrs. Jang would be furious about the falsified Asian market reports. Each package was tailored to hit where it would hurt most, ensuring the board would turn on James completely. I entered our house, soon to be just mine, and walked straight to James's study, the wall safe behind his prized Monet fake. Another secret I'd uncovered held more than just documents. I spun the dial with practiced ease. He never knew I'd learned the combination months ago, by simply watching him open it one night while he thought I was asleep inside. Lay the final pieces of evidence, original documents proving his father had never actually signed over full control of the company. James had forged the transfers, taking advantage of his father's declining health. I'd found them 3 weeks ago, but left them in place, knowing tonight would be the perfect time for their discovery. The FBI would be here within the hour with a search warrant. They'd find exactly what they were looking for, exactly where I'd ensured it would be the safe. James's laptop with its hidden partition, the backup drive disguised as a coffee coaster, all would tell the same damning story. I moved to our bedroom, the room we'd shared until James started spending more nights at his executive apartment, and opened my jewelry box. The empty spot where my grandmother's bracelet had been, SC, to mock James's arrogance. He'd never suspected that I'd planted it in his desk, knowing he would give it to Elena as a twist. Ed trophy. My phone buzzed again, this time. It was Elena. Secondary files sent to prosecutors, en route to safe house, she had played her part perfectly documenting every illegal transaction James had trusted her with. Her relationship with him had been the perfect cover for gathering evidence, and her immunity deal would ensure she stayed far away from any fallout. I changed out of my burgundy dress, carefully hanging it up. This dress had been more than just an outfit. It had been a costume for the most important performance of my life. Every detail of tonight had been choreographed. The wine I ordered, James's favorite, making him lower his guard. The table location in full view of security cameras. Even the timing of the FBI agent arrival. The foundation for this evening had been laid months ago. Each business trip James took had given me time to piece together his criminal empire. Every late night he spent with Elena had allowed me to access his office copy files, plant evidence. His own arrogance had made him careless, leaving digital breadcrumbs that any skilled investigator could follow. I poured myself a glass of wine, not the overpriced Bordeaux from dinner, but a simple Marrow I actually enjoyed, and settled into my home office. My laptop showed multiple email notifications, board members responding to the evidence, financial alerts as accounts were frozen, news organizations picking up the first hints of the scandal. The perfect setup wasn't just about gathering evidence or timing its release. It was about understanding people, their weaknesses, their motivations, their breaking points. James had always underestimated me, seeing only what he wanted to see. The trophy wife who'd given up a promising career in law enforcement for him. He never realized that I'd never stopped being an investigator. I just found a more personal case to solve. My phone lit up with a video call from Marcus. The timing was perfect, exactly an hour after I'd left Lupa Jardin. "It's done," he said, his face illuminated by police lights flashing in the background. "James Sterling is in custody. You should see his face when we found the hidden compartment in his office." I took another sip of wine, savoring the moment and Elena safely in witness protection. She's already given her official statement about James's involvement in the embezzlement scheme. The evidence she provided matches perfectly with your documentation on my laptop screen. News alerts were already starting to pop up. Sterling Corpo arrested, screamed one headline. Massive financial fraud uncovered at Sterling Corp. Declared another. The financial news channels would be running this story non-stop by morning. I switched to the security feed ID installed in James's office months ago. FBI agents were methodically going through every drawer, every file, finding each piece of evidence exactly where I'd ensured it would be. The look of defeat on James's face, as they'd let him out in handcuffs, was something I'd remember forever. The board members, I asked Marcus. All 9 of them have pledged full cooperation with the investigation. Mrs. Zhang was particularly vocal about pressing charges after seeing those falsified Asian market reports. Everything was falling into place, exactly as planned. The execution of this plan had been flawless, each component triggering the next, like a line of perfectly arranged dominoes. James's attempt to humiliate me at our anniversary dinner had become the catalyst for his own destruction. My security system alerted me to movement at the front door, right on schedule. The local police arriving with a search warrant for our home. I bust them in, playing the part of the shocked and cooperative wife perfectly. "Mrs. Sterling," the lead detective said gently, "we have a warrant to search the premises. We understand. This must come as a shock." I let my voice tremble slightly. "Of course, officer. Please do whatever you need to do." I just can't believe all those late nights he said he was working. They moved through the house efficiently, finding the damning evidence in James's study exactly where it needed to be. The false bottom in his desk drawer, the encrypted files on his personal laptop, the offshore account documents hidden in his rare book collection. Discovery adding another nail to the coffin of his defense. My phone buzzed again. Elena's burner phone, this time package delivered to DA's office. All accounts transferred as planned. "I'm going dark now. Thank you for the second chance." I deleted the message immediately. Elena had been the perfect accomplice, playing her role as the home wrecker while actually helping to gather the evidence that would bring James down. Her own criminal past had made her the ideal candidate for turning state's evidence. The police were now in James's home office, photographing everything I watched as they discovered the fake Monet. Another piece of evidence that would lead to additional charges of art fraud. James's perfect world was unraveling thread by thread, and he was powerless to stop it. Mrs. Sterling, the detective called out, "We found something interesting in your husband's safe. Did you know about these documents?" I walked over, feigning confusion. I never knew the combination. James was very private about his business matters. The detective held up the forged documents showing James's theft of company control from his father. My anonymous tip about those would hit the DA's desk tomorrow morning, adding another layer to the prosecution's case. "No," I whispered, letting my eyes fill with tears. I had no idea all this time as the officers continued their search. I retreated to the kitchen, ostensibly to make coffee for everyone. In reality, I needed a moment to appreciate how perfectly everything had aligned. The execution of my plan had been flawless from the public humil. James had orchestrated unwittingly against himself to the precise timing of law enforcement's involvement. Dawn broke over the city as the last police car pulled away from a Ryu driveway. The morning news was already running the story on every channel. Sterling Corpo arrested in massive fraud scheme. The financial networks were having a field day, their ticker tapes blood-red with the company's plummeting stock prices. I sat in my kitchen, watching the chaos unfold on multiple screens. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since sunrise. Reporters, board members, old colleagues, all wanting to know how I was handling the shocking revelation of my husband's crimes. Fully they knew the first call I took was from James's father, despite his declining health. His voice was sharp, with anger and disappointment. "I warned him about you," the old man said without preamble. Told him never to trust a woman with your background, but I never imagined he'd betray me like this. I'm so sorry, Richard," I replied, letting genuine sympathy color my voice. James's father had always been kind to me, even while warning his son against our marriage. "If there's anything I can do." "You've done enough," he said quietly. "The board is meeting in an hour. We need an interim co to handle this crisis." I smiled into my coffee cup, right on schedule. The aftermath was spreading like ripples in a pond. James's closest allies at Sterling Corp were being suspected. Ended pending investigation. The company's stock had dropped 40 in pre-market trading. International partners were distancing themselves, canceling deals that James had personally orchestrated. My laptop pinged with an email from Elena's lawyer. Her official statement had been filed with the DA's office. She detailed every transaction, every illegal deal, every instance of fraud she'd witnessed. Her testimony would be devastating to James's defense. The doorbell rang. Marcus arriving with official papers. "The D wants to take your statement," he said, settling into my kitchen with his own coffee. "They're building a rocket case. James hasn't said a word since his arrest, but with the evidence we have, he doesn't need to." I nodded. Reviewing the preliminary charges: fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, tax evasion, corporate espionage. Each charge backed by meticulous documentation. Each piece of evidence properly obtained and cataloged. His lawyers, I asked. Though I already knew the answer, dropped him. This morning, apparently, they found out about the forged documents transferring company control from his father. They don't want any part of this. The morning papers arrived, and I spread them across my kitchen island. Each headline was more damning than the last. Financial journalists were already calling it the scandal of the decade. Expert commentators were predicting prison sentences measured in decades, not years. My phone buzzed again, a text from James's sister, Catherine. I always knew he'd self-destruct. Eventually. "Are you okay?" I left it unanswered. Catherine had been another unwitting player in this game, her genuine concern for my well-being helping to mask my investigation over the past months. The aftermath wasn't just professional. James's social circle was disintegrating. Country club memberships revoked, charity board positions resigned. The carefully cultivated image he built over years was crumbling in a matter of hours. "The press will want a statement," Marcus reminded me gently. "They'll get one," I assured him, the devoted wife shocked and devastated by her husband's betrayal, standing ready to cooperate fully with authorities. My performance at Lupa Jardin had been just the beginning. Now came the harder part, maintaining the facade of the wronged wife, playing my role in the public aftermath of James's downfall. A final text came through from an unknown number, Elena. "One last time, forever grateful. Good luck, then. Her number went dark as she disappeared into her new life under witness protection. I looked around my kitchen at the empire of evidence I'd built to destroy the man who'd thought he could discard me. The aftermath was still unfolding, but the hardest part was done. James would never see it coming until it was too late. 1 month later, I sat in the gallery of the federal courthouse watching as James was led and wearing an orange jumpsuit, a far cry from his bespoke suits. He looked older, defeated, his carefully maintained appearance now showing signs of strain. He didn't look at me, but I made sure he could feel my presence. The hearing was brief but decisive. James had finally agreed to a plea deal, facing 20 years in federal prison and forfeiture of all assets gained through illegal means. His lawyers had advised him it was the best offer he'd get, given the mountain of evidence against him, Your Honor. The prosecutor announced, we have reached an agreement with the defendant in exchange for his full cooperation in ongoing investigations. Mr. Sterling will plead guilty to all charges. I watched James's shoulders slump as the judge reviewed the terms. His father sat 2 rows behind him, looking more devastated than angry. Now the mighty Sterling family name, built over generations, had been destroyed in a matter of weeks. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, hungry for a statement from the devoted wife who'd been blindsided by her husband's crimes. I played my part perfectly. I'm still processing everything I told them, letting my voice catch slightly the James the first knew or thought I knew. I just hope the truth brings some closure to everyone affected by his actions. Later that evening, I sat in what was now officially my house. The plea deal had included James forfeiting all claims to our joint assets and opened a special bottle of wine. I'd been saving not the overpriced Bordeaux James had preferred, but a simple Californian reed he discovered on our first date before he tried to remake me into his perfect corporate wife. My phone lit up with a message from Richard Sterling. The board has reviewed your proposal. We'd like to meet tomorrow to discuss your role in rebuilding the company. Everything had come full circle. James had once pushed me away from corporate oversight. Now I would help lead the effort to resurrect Sterling Corp. From the ashes of his crimes, his father, who had once warned him about my background in financial crime investigation, now saw it as the company's salvation. Elena was thriving in her new life, her immunity deal, securing her freedom and a fresh start. The last update from her handler indicated she'd enrolled in college, pursuing a legitimate career far from her past cons. Sometimes the best revenge included allowing others a chance at redemption. I walked through the house, finally free to make the changes I'd always wanted. James's pretentious art collection, mostly forgeries, as the investigators had discovered, would be replaced with pieces I actually loved. His study, that fortress of secrets and lies, would become my home office. The media had already dubbed it the Sterling scandal, but they'd missed the real story. They focused on the financial crimes, the corporate espionage, the dramatic arrest. None of them suspected that the entire thing had been orchestrated by the quiet wife they depicted as another victim of James's deceptions. I opened my laptop one last time that evening, reviewing the final piece of my resolution. My official statement accepting the position of Chief Compliance Officer at Sterling Corp. was ready to be released tomorrow. The board had been eager to demonstrate their commitment to transparency and reform. Who better to prevent future fraud than the woman who had exposed the last one? James's last words to me had been, "At Lupa John meet the upgrade." He never realized that I was the one who'd be upgraded from trophy wife to corporate savior, from victim to victor. The resolution wasn't just about justice or revenge. It was about transformation. James had tried to diminish me, to make me smaller. Instead, he'd given me the perfect opportunity to reveal my true self. As I got ready for bed that night, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who'd endured that humiliating anniversary dinner. She was stronger, sharper, more complete. James had wanted to write my ending, but instead, he'd only set up my beginning. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. The best revenge is served at precisely the right temperature, with perfect timing and garnished with absolute victory.